Welcome to Tanked Up, the podcast about video games and beer. I'm Ben, here with Aadil.
Hey!
Hey, it's a little WillSmithisode this evening.
Just the two of us. We will make it, and we'll try.
Absolutely.
Or we'll be trying. We'll probably just be trying.
More than likely, yeah. We might not actually make it.
Yeah.
So, let's open some beers. What have you got this evening, dude?
That is a good question. What do I have this? I have, well, I grabbed the wrong two. That's funny. I put 4 beers in the fridge today, and I grabbed the 2 that I thought were the other 2. But instead of grabbing the, holy shit, it's hot, so I want, like an IPA and maybe a pale ale, I grabbed the last of my stout and porter.
Brilliant. Well, hopefully they're cool enough.
Oh, I mean, you can see the sweat off this thing. Just leaving the fridge for like 15 minutes and going into this horrible room. So this is, I think you've had this too, because this is another, this is from Oedipus Brewing in Amsterdam. It's the Panty Stout. 6%. It's got this lovely man in pantyhose.
It's a
very
good image.
Pantyhose.
Yes, very large ones.
And that's all it really says. It's got water, gerstemoed, hogemoed, hop, and yeast. I'm sure you can figure out what those are. Moot is small.
Yeah, good. I wasn't going to drink this evening. I hadn't had a chance to go anywhere. I haven't had any beer delivered. Kim is having some, what do you call it? Like a month where you don't drink anything. And I thought, well,
dry August,
a quiet month. And I thought, I won't buy any beers to have. I'll just get some for the podcast. And it just completely went out of my mind before the weekend. And then I've just been so busy with work that I didn't get an order together. But I am going to drink. I'm just going to drink what I picked up in the convenience store earlier when I had to go for other things. So I picked them up. But it's it's everyone's friend, Goose Island Ipa.
Oh, a classic. The Ipa.
Yes. Which is what, 5.9%. It's only a little baby 330ml can, which is expected. It was either this or Proper Job from St. Austell. Proper Job.
I like Proper Job, but I don't like it. I like it off of. I even don't mind it on a cask. I like it like on draft. I don't really like it bottled or canned. I find it just doesn't quite work. I don't know why.
I agree. No, I agree. I picked some up a few weeks ago, not for me to drink, but for someone else, for family who were visiting, and they didn't end up drinking any. Because they were driving, they only came up for the day to hang out in the garden, socially distanced and all that sort of stuff. But they didn't end up drinking them, so I had them. And I found that in the bottle, they seem to have got a lot more bitter. And I never remember them being as harsh as the sort of the 2 bottles that I had were. But Goose Island, it's a pretty standard beer. I do enjoy that on the side of the can it says, we don't need to be the only beer you drink. We just want to be the best beer you drink. They fail at that.
Yeah, I was going to say, I enjoy the idea, but it makes me sad that it's not. If that's the goal.
Yes, yeah. If that is the goal.
You pass that first hurdle, no problem. Second one, ooh, not quite, folks. I mean, and again, it's not like it's bad, right? It's just...
Absolutely. It's not a bad beer at all. It's very light, it's very easy. It is just pretty standard. It's the same every time. Great for consistency. It's kind of that level of beer, I think, that it is like your punk IPAs. Maybe, and it's not quite edging into the Northern Monk New World IPA. That kind of does fluctuate a little bit every now and again.
Yeah, in fact, my friend Kieran had some last week in our little weekly communal group movie watch online, and he was like, "This is awful." He just did
Really?
not like it. Yeah, just I was like, well, "That's strange. I've had it before. It's not like you just describing it is not great." And I was like, "Well, I mean, they do have variabilities on their batches, so maybe that's just the way."
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. How is the Oedipus?
The Oedipus is it's mercifully cold. Colder than I should have it as a stout,
Okay.
perhaps, but not really. Actually, I think it's reasonably warmed up in the brief time away from the fridge. I really like it actually. It's got quite a malty. It's very malt forward. Sort of rounded coffee roasted notes. Not super burnt, but like and it ends up being a little sweet as everything else, as the bitterness and the roastedness recedes. It ends a little sweet, which right at the tail end, the main part of the taste before it's like purely finished. That sweetness and that roastedness just give a hint of, oh, is that toffee? And then it's all as it fades away. So it's like good, boisterous, roasted, round, malty flavor. Not too long of a main taste, and then it's like as that's receding, it's like, oh yeah, it's kind of, oh hey, there's toffee, and then that's going away, and then it leaves the mouth a little drier than I would like. Actually, in the texture and the mouthfeel, but that sweetness sort of helps balance that off, and so it just, you can tell it's not the bitterness and the sweetness, because then you would sort of feel that toffee-like tension for longer. It's very clearly, oh no, it's sweet, but which is not my favorite way a beer finishes, but I mean, it's not unheard of for a stout.
Yeah, I seem to remember drinking that on the evening I had, I think 3 or 4 stouts from that box. Yeah. And you drank one before I did, which came from that box, which was like the Van Verhoeven or something like that. It was just like a black bottle that said stout on it.
Yeah.
And I think that was my favourite from the 4 that I drank, the one that kind of stood out. I don't really remember much about any of the others.
Yeah, I mean, this is I like this more than the last one. I think it's very much a stouty stout.
Yeah.
Yeah, like if you were looking for something that tastes like a stout, this is doing that. But yeah, it's I think you're right that which I'm not surprised, because when I lived in the Netherlands, stouts were few and far between, and so like the fact that we're getting a consistency of craft beers that are in the stout porter range from the Netherlands, it shows how much has changed in the the 8 years since I lived there. Fuck.
Yeah.
I just realized how long it had been. I moved away in end of September 2012. So 8 years, almost to the month. Okay. That's a long time.
Yes, it is.
I mean, my familiarity, I can't be like on the street knowledge. It's like, yeah, because I mean, think of where craft brewing was 10 years ago in Bristol, right? Like, even 5 years ago. Well, yeah, around 5 years ago was when things really started to like expand here. From a couple of places well known to, and that one, and then there's like places like Brewhouse, which sort of do their own thing at a smaller scale, and that's great too. Like, I think when I first came to Bristol, like 0 Degrees was like, hey, you like craft beer? That place exists. That everyone knew, everyone knew about. I know there were like other breweries were still around, but it wasn't nearly in the zeitgeist, I guess.
Yes.
It took a while for me to discover these spots. Anyway.
Yeah, and I think it was the same for me when I moved to Bristol. That wasn't the kind of beer that I was drinking. When did I move to Bristol? 10 years ago? No, longer than that. 15 years ago now. Yes, 15 years ago when I moved to Bristol. I know.
We're so old, Ben.
I know. Tell me about it.
We don't have Lucy, the young one of us, which but
it's right, at least we look young.
Yeah,
it's fine. We have youthful good looks. which I
It's true, actually.
completely put down to all of the beer.
All of the beard, I was going to say. Having shaved my beard once during lockdown, I look old without it. Although I did tell a friend of mine who I only knew sort of tangentially pre-lockdown through a couple of movie nights that our mutual friend put on, and then they've been involved with a lot of our group online shenanigans, and so I know them really quite well now. If they're a friend of mine, and
Sure.
but when we were in the park a week and a half ago, I mentioned my age, and they were just blown away. They were like, "What? What do you? What? No, fuck off! What? No, no."
Brilliant.
I was like, well, I mean, technically, I mentioned the age I'm turning in October, and they're like, 37 my ass. I'm like, 37 my ass. Yeah. So that was kind of nice. It was like, just like, not the usual, oh, you know, because I've been a student for so long, so you like age me down. But it was like, nope, I'm flabbergasted.
Yeah.
It's like, excellent.
That's how you know you're doing well. Lockdown has been good to you.
Although beard, you can start to see
I don't even...
beard's got white through it. I got some white eyebrow hairs now.
Oh, I don't think I've got those.
Yeah, you can kind of see right there. Yeah, which is like, that wasn't around until lockdown. Stress and anxiety, they really do that old age thing, or that white hair thing. Anyway, I'm distracting from your beer, Ben.
I mean, everyone's had this beer.
Yeah.
It's again, for an IPA, it's much more, I think, of it's not kind of a New World IPA. So even though Goose Island are an American brewery, I don't know where these are actually brewed.
Because they're...
Oh, brewed in Belgium.
Yeah. Okay.
There you go. Brewed in Belgium, distributed by AB InBev. The big boys. But yeah, Goose Island are an American company, but it very much takes on a slightly more kind of traditional IPA, I suppose. It's actually quite comparable to something like Proper Job, but it doesn't have that big bitter hit to it. It's kind of a little bit fruity, slightly hoppy, but the malts definitely have a big backbone in this and kind of carry everything along. It's super clear, as you can see. It was a little frothy.
Yeah,
it dissipated quite quickly.
I mean, because we do the craft beer thing so often, it's so rare to see an IPA that is clear.
Yeah.
Like, if we see clear beer, it's usually a craft lager or like a pale ale, but like...
Yeah, like a West Coast IPA, something like that, maybe. But
yeah.
This kind of... This doesn't quite get over to sort of West Coast. It's definitely malty. It's definitely got those kind of malty, slightly bready notes to it.
Really?
That make it kind of, again, like a slight sweetness, maybe from the slightly floral note from the hops kicks in, to give you, as you had kind of with yours, a little bit of a toffee kind of edge to it. There is just that kind of malty sweetness in there with a little hint of a floral note coming from the hops. And kind of the note, one of the things with these kinds of beers is the nose and the flavour match each other almost identically, so you can stick your nose in and you know exactly what you're going to be getting when you drink it. And it does have a little bit of bitterness to it, but it kind of comes and goes quite quickly. And as it goes, it draws a lot of that flavour away with it. It's very dry and it just disappears really quickly. It's a very easy beer to drink, and it's a very easy beer to drink a lot of very quickly as well, because that flavour goes, because that bitterness goes. You can just sip and sip and sip and sip this. What was it? Close to 6%, 5.7, 5.9.
Yeah, it's quite close.
So it's not quite a session beer, but I think it's, at least in my mind, it feels like it could be. And it would, as I say, it's very easy just to sink a 4-pack of these in a couple of hours, even in an hour, and not really think anything of it.
I would say that that is something like oh, I'm heading to meet some friends to chat in a park, because that's how you hang out with friends responsibly in this day and age.
Yes.
Picking up a 4-pack Gippas would be fine. Like, yeah, right?
Yeah.
Don't really care as much about boisterous, deep tastes, refreshing, so long as it's like nice and cold. Just would be a really solid. Hey, I'm not having to split a box of Stella with my mates. I've got at least threshold beers.
Yes. Yeah. Absolutely. What is your threshold beer? I think this is probably mine. This is probably the one that, if there's nothing else there, I'll go, okay. There's a couple of others which aren't crap, which is like something like Beer Moretti, which is, when you get into lagers, it's a little bit of a different space.
I was just saying, because I hang out with a lot of postgraduate students, aka young people, I mentioned the splitting the box of Stella because that's been the norm for a number of years, and I just have to turn off craft beer brain and be like, yes, this is a beer, and I'm going to consume a handful of them tonight with these people.
Yeah.
And the point is to drink with these people. But I usually there's a co-op around, which means I can get the Brewgutter Lager. If I'm not just if I'm not going ham on, or going to a house party where everyone's having 7 beers or whatever. You can't afford anything but a thing of pints of Stella or whatever. That's that's become my go-to for a while now.
Nice.
Or I occasionally dip into. Well, I used to do the BrewDog year before. We've had enough chats about how they're not the best company and their beer is not improved, and it's I'd rather just grab. It's easier for me to find the Brewgutter, oddly enough, than the Goose IPA. I found in the places around Montpellier and Clifton and Cottam, I should say, where I tend to pick up beers on the road.
Yes.
But yeah, so.
Yeah, I had a 4-pack of the Clean Water Lager at the weekend, which is a lovely lager. It's very, very easy, really easy to drink. I think I'd probably lift that above a lot of the other lagers that I kind of go towards when I have to go to sort of a convenience store instead of the Co-op or something like that, which may have a slightly broader selection of things. As we say, lager's kind of this different space when you come to smaller shops to be able to pick stuff up in. Lager doesn't seem to have proliferated from kind of that craft scene into these places really yet. And you have a few, BrewDog have got Lost Lager, maybe, is that what it's called? Which are in things like Tesco and stuff. But again, it's another sort of very, very easy but not very tasty kind of lager, which is actually a little bit more similar to sort of your Stellas or your Kronenbergs, things like that. But I just realised that for years we've been joking about casual gaming, and now we're very much talking about casual drinking. And luckily, this isn't quite a thing. It isn't a slur within the craft beer world.
I actually think me admitting that I drink Stella not reasonably on the regular is a bit of a. I'm sure there's people in the audience going. And he's the guy who's grabbing porters on a scorching day. Does he even know beer? And the answer is no, folks, I don't. God, I'm smashing through this thing. It's so hot.
Yes.
Because there's a lot of street noise. I had to close my window, and it's not getting better.
You in a room with some fans on that PC going as well.
Oh, God, I wish I had fans, non-PC fans.
It's all about.
And you guys online might be fans, but aren't cooling me down.
It's all about that water cooling system, so it keeps everything nice and quiet too. If you've got thousands. I wish I could have.
Yeah. Although I remember helping a friend build a water cooling rig in the pre-2010 era, where you had to do it all, like make your own reservoirs and make sure it didn't leak. And now it's just like, oh, you buy a thing that's sealed and you just go boop, and then it works. It's also real pretty and it comes with lights as a default. And it's like, what? It's like the decade I took off of building PCs was the decade where everything became easier. And now I'm like, oh wow, you built a new PC, cool, friend. And I'm like, wow, it looks so good. And then I look into products, I'm like, oh, it's plug and play from. I mean, not to denigrate people, but I'm just like, back in my day,
Yes.
when I built a PC, you had to make your own MOSFETs. you didn't, but yeah. Anyway,
Man, I remember the days of. I must, again, this is like 20 years ago when I first built my first PC, when I was 16, and going to like PC World, which wasn't as big as it is now back then, and you walk in and on one side of the wall they had all of their like not branded components. So basically you could buy a non-branded stick of RAM, which back then max was probably 256 megabytes or something like that. But it wasn't branded. It came in this, again, unbranded, ungraphic cardboard box with a little sticker on it just saying what it was and a barcode. And you used to be able to buy components like that from shops, and they used to be a little bit cheaper, and it was great because you'd go, right, I've saved up this much money, I'm going to go and get myself another whatever, or I'm going to upgrade this, or I'm going to change this, and just constantly. I could keep up with it back then for about, I don't know, 5 years, roughly until my early 20s, when suddenly university living was far too expensive to keep upgrading my PC. But you know, when you're a teenager and you're working jobs and you've got nothing else to spend your money on.
Oh, don't, yeah. I mean, when I was a rock climbing instructor with the portable company, I made, because I got per diems, which I never used all the money for, and got paid per kilometer driven, and we drove across a large chunk of Canada.
Yeah.
Which is not a small place. I just made that's why I didn't need student loans. I took student loans out a couple of years because I mean, this was when I was an economist. I did the maths, and I was like, oh, it's interest free until 6 months after you're done. All right, give me the money. Also, if you took this much money out and you didn't live with your parents, they gave you the Millennium Scholarship for a couple of years, because that's like what the government created right when I started university at the beginning of the millennium. Shit. And so it was like, if you borrow $8,000, we'll give you 2. It's like, cool. Now I have an extra 10 grand to play with, and I just have to pay 8 of it back in the next 3 years. $8,000. Virtual savings account, essentially.
Yeah.
$2,000. Ah! New PC.
Nice.
Which, now in retrospect, I wouldn't do that because obviously it's not an unlimited bucket. Although with the scholarship, it's a little less clear because anyone could qualify.
Okay.
So that's just taking money from another place the government needed. It was more complicated than I realized. This is what I'm saying.
Yes.
But
yes.
I digress. Yeah. So I've been in school for a long time. I'm technically done. My week has been playing the job application game. To put us mildly on track. Along with a couple of other games.
Okay.
And by that I mean one. What did I talk about last week? I didn't end up talking about one, did I?
Oh, let me look back. I have my book. I've got my book.
Oh, good. Yeah.
Yes, Magic the Gathering Arena, but the Jumpstart. Yes, that's right. Have you been playing more of that?
It's real fun. Yeah. But today, I figured today I would just talk about what I did today.
Sure.
Which for those of you who are around Thursdays at noon British Standard Time, or is it daylight time now?
Tuesdays.
Yeah, Tuesdays. Did I say Tuesday?
Thursday, you said.
Yeah, it's hot. What was I saying? Right, yeah, Tuesdays at noon. For a few weeks now, I've been sort of doing some random streams, but think we're gonna settle into either previews like last week. I think the VOD's still there on Twitch, but I haven't pushed it onto YouTube. But I played through, and we briefly talked about it, but I played through Banners of Ruin with Lucy in the in the back seat, talking through the game that I talked a bit about 2 episodes ago. But I didn't have a preview game this week because I didn't get a chance to review a game. But like a month ago and a half, you and I sort of went through a couple games on the Racial Inequalities bundle that happened on Itch. And because it had been that long, I did the same thing that we did on our stream, which was struggle to figure out how to find a game and install it from that bundle on Itch. Thankfully, Ben wasn't available to be part of the stream, but was available to watch the stream and reminded me how to do that crazy navigation. After poor Alfred was just like, I don't know what to do. I can't help you.
Yeah. It is overly complex.
Yeah. Anyway, we settled on the Fall of Lazarus. Lazarus? Oh, fuck, what's it called?
That sounds right.
Yeah, the Lazarus game on the Racial bundle, and it's a space survival puzzle game with intrigue, and jank. Heavy on the jank. To the point where we all know I have a soft spot for janky games and silliness and trying to break games, and which obviously goes hand in hand with jank. And so I think that going forward, it might not be in the Tuesday slot, but a sort of janky games with Alfred might be a standard special, because boy did Alfred put up with my shit and also help. The fact that when I found a little weird doll thing that I just decided was going to be my friend and I'm going to walk around everywhere with it, and Alfred was like, this is hilarious. I'm like, oh good, because it must be mildly annoying because it takes up this much of the screen and I'm refusing to let go of it because I'm dumb and I think that's funny. But also he turns out things spatially in a different way, and there was a puzzle where I was just like, nope, I don't think I could do this. It's like finding a path through nodes, a single path through hitting all the nodes and connecting in the right way. There was stars, constellations, that's the word. And I was like, even if I had on screen the constellations, which you don't get in the game, nor can you re-look them up easily, I am bad at. I just can't see those paths. Just can't. I was like, I don't think I could do this even if it was in front of me. Stop letting me in front of me. I might have to quit this game. And Alfred's like, oh, hold on. I think you just do this. That. And he didn't get a single. It wasn't like, oh, trace the path. Oh, that didn't work. Let's try again. He's like, oh, this is the path. Oh, nice. And that's the path. Yeah. And he's just got them all right away. It's like, cool. All right. Well, make me feel like I know what's going on. But yeah, the Lazarus game had a problem of a really the tutorial chapter, which I think was the original demo, had a really annoying both annoyingly written and voice acted protagonist. Okay. And it wasn't clear what was going on, and there's just some bad UI things and lack of direction. So it was this is kind of an awful game, but at least we're having fun. And then we started the regular game, and it was this is slightly better, more interesting protagonist. So Alfred and I are going to continue this game at least one more session. Nice. Because it managed to get us invested enough into what's going on. There's between the tutorial and chapter 1, there's a 100-year break on a space station. But in both of those things, spoiler alert, you play someone who wakes up alone on the space station. But you're not the same person. But at least it kind of changes the classic template a little bit. I would imagine they don't then
stop what you're doing and jump you into a third person. Maybe they do at some other point, but I would imagine
I don't think so.
You're sticking with the current protagonist for the main game. But from what
which you don't know their name.
Oh, okay. I did see some, mostly in the prologue, I suppose, just some very odd bits and just strangeness. And like, oh, I'm walking around a space station. Nope. Now it's something completely different. It's almost that idea that it's kind of, like Event Horizon, where suddenly you're in a completely different plane. You're like, how
that is a very.
Did I get here? This game doesn't have that horror element to it.
But it's definitely trying to play the same move. Like it's just you wake up and you're basically almost immediately you have to pass the psychosis test, which is actually just a memory game. With by the way, the control scheme is terrible, which doesn't help. But yeah, you play this memory game, which it's just you forget how more polished games have, like how that layer of polish is not often noticed. But like the hint of what? Okay, I'm giving you the screen, and there's a line of icons, and then there's a line below it, and you're like, do I match these? Do I do them in the same order? How do I move around? Can I move around? Because for the first time, 4 times I played it, I thought I was doing something specifically with square 1, but actually, turns out it was just a non-standard keystrokes to move to square 3, which matched square 1 on the above diagram. That then, once I understood how to move around, it's like, oh, it's a matching game. Yep. It's actually very simple. But also, boy, is that like immersion breaking when they're like, we're testing you for psychosis. Can you memorize 5 squares and then reproduce them? Not psychotic. Also, then and then a later part, they're like, it was just general mental fortitude, so the writing wasn't quite there. Like, said psychotic specifically on the one test, and then afterwards was like really hammering home that like nothing could be wrong with your brain because you passed the test.
Right. And
you're like, well, the test you can't tell me, oh, you're not psychotic, but also, oh, you have no other problems later. Anyway, you basically walk through doors and suddenly you're like floating in this weird space with islands with a purple tree that has clocks hanging.
That's the
from
bit
it.
that I saw. Yeah.
Yeah. And you're like, oh, yay. And like, I have to admit that there were codes on some of these bits, and it's like, there's no indication of what you're supposed to do. I have no idea how to find these codes. And it wasn't until the third one that Alfred pulled from a walkthrough that we think we now know what the codes, how to map them, but there's just no hints. It's just like, as you type them, a squiggly line appears. And Alfred's supposition is you're supposed to just hammer on these until you get an uninterrupted line, and that'll change per safe or whatever. And I was like, there's no way I would have figured that out. Like, I see something that asks for code, and I immediately look around the whole space station for where's the code. Or something that says how to generate the code. And nothing said uninterrupted line, and there were no strings of numbers anywhere. So I was just like, I don't know what to do. And Alfred's like, nah. And of course, unfortunately, some of it is non-linear in the pathing. So Alfred, he's like, oh, it's this code. Was not that code. Oh, it's this code. Was not that code. It's like, okay, so I know you enjoyed my silly dumbass behavior of like carrying dolls around because you could carry a doll around, so why wouldn't you do that? But now are you trolling me? No, just on the wrong part of the wall. Anyway, so it's been a while since I've played a game like that. Like it's in the same sort of vein as like Tacoma, in that like you're alone on the space station and your character and you don't quite know what's going on.
Yep.
And like the whole point of the game is you do small puzzles to figure out. Like it's like we need to come up with a name for this genre actually, of like space puzzle narrative games. Spins. It's not
quite news, is it? No, it's not
that's
really
what I mean.
narrative.
And it's not
driven
about. It's not like a walking. Yeah, it's not a walking simulator. It is puzzly, right? I mean, it's like 3D Space Quest-ish.
Yeah.
Like, it kind of is like a point-and-click, but in the modern era, but...
Some things for us to work on, I suppose.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm going to try to figure out an acronym that makes it just be called a space game. I'll figure something out that will make it confusing. Yeah, and other than that, this week, it's been so hot that like I was like, I applied to a job on Friday or something, or late last week, and I was like, cool, I'm gonna play games this weekend. And instead, I basically melted in my bed because Bristol's been in a 30-degree heat wave for like a week.
Yep. It has been very, very hot. We spent a lot. I barely played anything at all. I spent a lot of time outside, in the garden, doing stuff, water fights, those sorts of things.
God,
that you do when you have a young child walking around, and it's unbearably hot. But I have delved
jealous.
into a little game, which we can talk about in a moment. I just cracked another beer. It is the Goose IPA again.
Oh, okay. I'm gonna, while you pour, I'm just gonna rinse, and then I can grab my other beer. So you can pour on camera to.
I did start the pour.
Oh, you already did.
But look at that!
Ooh,
look at
bad
that
pour.
Frothy head. The last one was
quite
like
different
that,
from the
but
last
it dissipated really quickly from the last one. This one's just sticking around. I don't know whether that's the change in temperature. For those of you listening, viewing us, it's not going anywhere. I've now filled my glass with the last of it, and it's sticking around. This is this is the third can from the 4-pack that I purchased. The first can wasn't anywhere near this. The second can, again, as we sort of saw, was a little bit more frothy, but that dissipated really quickly. So I don't know whether there's something to do with the temperature, perhaps. This one's now been sat here for the last 50 minutes, roughly. It's warmed a little bit. I'm trying to sip it, and that cool edge has definitely come off it that I had from the first can.
That's a shame.
It is. It is. Definitely want something that's a bit more refreshing.
Yeah. Before we jump to mine, seeing as we've already started talking about the taste of yours, so there's this, especially with like craft lagers, and so we've sort of been saying that this IPA is very like, kind of plays a similar role. I'm curious, like there's this threshold of it's cold, and that cold gives it the zip you want from a lager, etc. But I've noticed with craft lagers, sometimes when it's a little warmer, it doesn't do what you want from a lager, but it actually, you can tell more. You can tell the like more effort is like there's more going on when it's slightly warmer. And I think this is my like fundamental tension I have with craft lagers is like when I want a lager, I want it cold, and I want it to have that zip and that like nutty taste, but kind of like do the lagery thing. And when you make a craft lager cold enough to do that thing, often all of the effort they put into the other taste, you just can't quite tell. And then by the end of it, you're like, oh, this is actually more interesting. But if I get this again, I would want it in the uninteresting form.
Yeah.
And I was just wondering if, like, so I'm just going to pre-ask that, like, as you sip this Gipa number 2, whether the fact that it's warmer, if the taste is opening up differently. But I've got this sweaty ass can.
Ooh.
Look at that. Just playing havoc on my auto focus because I forgot to turn it off. So this is Frontal's, which is a Breda, again, Dutch brewery. It's beer for thought. It's the Daybreak coffee porter, because again I grabbed not the hot day beers, but you know what, that stout, it went down probably quicker than it normally would have, but it was quite refreshing.
Nice.
But I think I have cemented myself as the person who will kind of take a stout any time of year. I mean, if I was in a field in 30 degrees, I wouldn't pick it first, but I wouldn't not pick it. In fact, when I started drinking beers, I didn't like the taste, as young people often don't understand. I mean, you just don't. Beer is that weird acclimatization thing, and you have to convince when you tell people that who haven't gotten used to beer. You're like, yeah, you get used to it. It's fine. It just sounds stupid, but it works. Same thing with sours, right?
Yeah.
Sours are the beer of beers in that sense. But I only drank Guinness for a couple 3 years, because I didn't like the taste of lagers. I didn't really like the bitterness of beer. I liked the drunkenness of beer. I liked the creaminess of Guinness, which is why my branch out beers were like Kilkenny, a cream ale. But also why now I could tell people with confidence that Guinness isn't really a stout, because it's like this creamy, stouty thing. But also, except for the fact that it's more expensive than cheap beer, it's so non-carbonated that it would be my like drink before the bar beer as well, because for whatever reason other people would be like, I can't even finish one, it's like drinking bread. I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about. There's no bubbles. You chug a beer with bubbles and it like fills you up. You're like, ooh, I'm gonna burp a lot. And Guinness, you're like, okay, I'm gonna pour it down my throat, and then I grab another one.
Yep.
Pour it down my throat.
Yep. I used to drink a lot of Guinness as well before I really got into crappers. It is very, very smooth. It's got a nice enough flavour. But it is that beer that you can just keep drinking.
Yeah, I think honestly it's the thickness of the texture and head that convinces people it must be filling. But I can't. I'm not convinced that it's actually filling to these people, because I can't understand how I could have that much of a disconnect of like fillingness. I could understand like taste preferences of bubbles or thickness or like viscosity, but like this fills me up, this doesn't. It doesn't make sense. Like you have a big meal of pasta, everyone feels full and bloated, right? Like how is this drink somehow magically not doing that to me but does it to you? But maybe I've just got a magic stomach and I'm speaking from a point of privilege.
Possibly. How is the frontal? Have you had a sip yet?
No, because I'm remembering to take a picture for the gram.
The much ignored Instagram.
Yeah, and I keep forgetting that I've started to just default to taking a picture right in front of me, which means like it was clever a couple times where it's like, because the outoflives.net on my TV will be in the background. It's like subtle extra advertising that this is a podcast. But then when like 5 weeks in a row it's basically the same angle, you're like, it's probably not doing. All right, anyway, so there's so much sweat from like, so I feel like I've spilt because I just have these rings of water on my desk because it's just the sweat from the can. But I'm surprised it's actually quite a. This is a coffee porter, 6%. That's all it says. Again, yeah. I mean, oh, actually, no, I lied. So the EBC is 7. The IBUs are 31. The cat is 1. Cat? Anyway,
Don't know.
I'm surprised for a coffee porter that it has almost no nose. It's like a slight sweetness and some maltiness. And like it's been sitting here for almost an hour, so it's definitely not because it's too cold. But yeah, just got this like sweet maltiness, and that's it.
Okay.
Oh, interesting. I don't know if you can tell, but it's actually quite wet. Like the head, like it's got some legs, but you notice how quickly they descend.
Yeah.
It's the same on the texture. Like that's the texture, right? It's just quite a thin feeling porter. This is interesting because the malt, the coffee was coming in is just kind of bitter coffee. I'm not getting like the notes of coffee, if you want. Like I'm not really tasting. Oh, this is coffee. I'm tasting a little bitter porter. Oh, let me look at the tin. It's bitter because it has coffee in it. It's like quite. So, I mean, I like a porter and a stout even to have be more viscous. I mean, it's 6%. It could be sort of thicker taste, feeling and tasting, and it's not. It's mouth feels quite thin, not very effervescent, as you can see. Like the head just wasn't there. It's just kind of bland. Like it's just like, oh yeah, okay, so this is porter, but I guess it's coffee, but it's just kind of bitter porter. Even the maltiness isn't really there in the sense of like, it's like one-dimensional. It's like, yes, this is a porter. It's got this malty tone. Yeah, it's a bit of a letdown. Part of it is just like, yeah, I mean, I've been having these stouts and porters from the Netherlands from the Beer 52 box for a couple of weeks now because I've been, to be honest, looking for a job and hoarding my beers.
Yeah.
But they've been varying. But this, I hate to say it before the end of the podcast, but this feels like the worst of the bunch for me. It's just like really thin in like taste depth as well as like general depth. Like it's just really one note. And I think part of it is the expectation of on the tin you're telling me 2 notes, coffee, porter, and you're giving me bitterish porter, but that's just porter. But maybe the Panty Stout is still lingering. So I'll keep sipping away at this, and if anything else comes up, I might interrupt.
Yes.
Or bring it up at the end. But I don't normally give, obviously, my final judgments or whatever you want to call them early on. But it's just like, as soon as I start talking about the beer, I just want to say,
And that's fair. It's fair. I remember from that box I had another beer from Frontal, maybe another couple of beers from Frontal, one of which came in a pink can.
I think I had that one.
I thought that was the worst one of the bunch. Out the whole box.
It wasn't. It was pale ale or something.
I pass. I can't remember what it was. It
wasn't
nice.
So it wasn't one of the. So like almost half that box was like stouts and porters.
Yes.
And this was the Frontal that wasn't a stout and porter. I just can't remember what it was. Yeah, I know which one you're talking about. But yeah, it's. I mean, it happens, right? Not everyone can be.
Absolutely, not every beer is going to hit. Not every brewery is going to hit. Sometimes you're going to find breweries, you're going to find beers which just don't align with your tastes. You're going to find styles which don't align with your tastes. It's completely open. There'll be lots of people who will have enjoyed that beer and lots of other beers that I think are okay or fine. So yeah, there's always a place for every beer. There's just not a person.
Yeah.
For every beer. No, maybe there is a person for every beer.
I mean,
yeah.
I'm going to guess for the most part, most beers, the brewer will be at least a person for a beer.
Yes.
I'm not saying that every brewer must love all their beers, but like, let's not. That's a weird like trail of what if you're forced to brew a beer you hate that we don't need to go down.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. Well, saying that, who knows what the people at these slightly bigger breweries feel about the beers that they produce. With your question earlier, at the different temperature with the Goose IPA, it is different. It is a lot more sickly sweet. Previously, it kind of had a bit of a sweetness, and it was a little bit sort of toffee, a little bit not quite burnt, but just this slightly slightly harsher sort of sweetness. This has just got sort of sickly, and it feels just a little bit like like a horrible syrupy kind of bittery liquid now. I definitely do not recommend drinking a Goose IPA at whatever temperature this now is, which is probably about 406 degrees, having sat in this ridiculously hot room.
It's Mercury, it's not the sun.
Exactly. So it's only burning my insides rather than all of me. Let's move on from what we're drinking then. I mentioned I'd had very little time to game, but I have been playing Fall Guys. Which is the free. It is one of the games included with PlayStation Plus. Which month.
I keep forgetting. Otherwise, I think I would have played it, but I haven't turned my PlayStation on in donkey's years. Sorry, I'm being that guy. I'm just like, I'm opening a tab to remind myself that I should get that before I don't get this game for free, because it sounds like a lot of fun.
It is a lot of fun. No. It is a lot of fun. The premise is you are one of 60 little jelly bean men running through an obstacle course or playing a team game and essentially going through various rounds, and people get eliminated in each of these rounds, and the whole idea is to be number one at the end of so many rounds. It's kind of like a battle royale, but
it's a round robin, right?
It is more like a round robin, yes. And you might have different courses. Can be anything from running through sort of an obstacle course whilst slime rises up and follows you. And this is pictured from third person. It's quite a wide camera angle on it. So you're this, if you're looking at my screen, you're a little jelly bean that's probably about that big in the middle of it. So you get quite a wide view of kind of what's coming up, of all of the other people around you running around. And it can be an obstacle course where slime is rising, you can't fall in the slime or you're eliminated. It can be you have to get through lots of different big fans, so you've got to time jumps or run through various obstacles. There's other games where it's sort of a team game and you're split up into 3 teams, blue, red and yellow, and you either have to jump through more hoops than any of the other teams.
Literal jumping through hoops?
Jumping through hoops, yep. And it's sort of it's quite a flat sort of level with maybe a couple of discs in which are continuously spinning, so you can stand on here and just get taken by the disc and then jump through the hoop. Or there's a little bit of verticality to it as well, a couple of ramps that go up that you can kind of jump over and bridge across and things. So, and the hoops drop down into various places, so it's quite dynamic in what it does. There's also one which is another team game where you have to get as many of these big balls, and you know your little guy is this big on the screen and the ball is maybe kind of this big.
So for those of us on the podcast, it's like 5 times the size?
Yeah, about 5 times the size roughly, yeah. And you have to retain that in your third of the map. So you're trying to get as many balls into your third of the map to win the thing, to then move on to the next round, essentially. And there's loads of different things. I don't think I've seen all of them yet.
So it's like kind of like if you took Battle Royale, Round Robin, and Mario Party.
It's a little bit Mario Party. Yep, it's kind of
in the sense of like, you never know what game is going to be needed for you to win.
Yes, yeah, very much, yeah. And they frame this around the idea that it is a TV show. So it's a random thing that comes in next. And it's, you know, it's very, definitely elicits thoughts of things like Takeshi's Castle.
I was just going to say.
Yeah, obviously Takeshi's Castle is very much a one person running through, you know, the obstacle course. Yeah. Whether that's them running up that corridor and there's the boulder that bounces down, they have to try and jump into the little spaces or get over the stepping stones.
Having to jump through the cutouts.
Yes, yeah, or get through the doors. There's another one on Fall Guys where there's 5 doors in front of you and only 3 of them on that set of doors you can actually break through. The others are solid. So you see people just bounce off of these doors because they don't break and they can't get through them, or doors, a wall as such. And then in the next one there might only be 2 that you can break through. And there's quite a lot of, I think, both skill in terms of navigating some of these and platforming skill, absolutely. I'm rubbish at slime climb, where the slime follows you up, because there's a couple of balance beams that are rounded, and unless you hit it on that kind of angle of that round tube to run along, you just fall off. And I am rubbish at that, because you've got to run along one, then jump onto another to get across.
Oh god, it's like Twitch platforming.
It is Twitch platforming, but slightly more constrained Twitch platforming, in that there is only a very specific area you can hit to be able to get across this. So there's a little bit of skill involved, but there's also the idea that there's a little bit of strategy involved. So with something like the doors, you can, everyone rushes ahead. You want to get there. You want to get through to the end. You want to be one of, say, 20 that get through to first over the line to move on to the next thing. But
so can I just pause there and say, so how many people start?
So the first round is 60 people.
And then how many get through? So is it like thirds?
No, there can be 5 rounds. So you drop down from 60, and it's not equal every time. And I don't know whether when you go into this, it says it's going to be 5 rounds. We already know the 5 rounds it's going to be. So we know that after round 1, we need to have X number of people to evenly divide up the next game. I don't know whether that's how it works, or whether it does that calculation kind of on the fly between each of the, you finish a round, it calculates how many people there are, and then it determines out of a pool of 3 rounds that it could be, rather than the 15 rounds that they have, what it moves on to next.
Gotcha.
But yes, so I think you go from 60 down to about 40-ish or 45-ish, something around there.
So it's not like a huge cull off the top.
No, it's not. It's not 60 down to 20 or something.
Yeah, it's because that's always a worry with these things, right? It's like, oh, I waited how long to start a round? Like, I mean, people who just have bad luck or are super great at FPS has had this problem with like PUBG.
Yeah.
Right, when that first came out, they're like, this seems really cool. I am literally the first of 100 dead.
Yes.
I guess I spectate for up to 35 minutes or whatever it is.
And that is one of the nice accessibility things about Fall Guys as well, is that once you're out, you can just leave. You don't have to stick around and watch. You leave, you go straight into another game. Brilliant.
Have you watched? Have you?
I have.
Felt invested enough?
I've enough that I got through to the 5th round, got eliminated, and did watch to see who won.
I mean, that makes sense.
Yes.
I was just curious whether because I could easily see like, I was the last 5, but also I don't have this attachment to this. I'll leave. So it's good to know that it does engender that notion of, I kind of want to see this through.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think that's a good earmarker of the longevity of a game. The fact that like off the top you're like, I'll probably stick around instead of playing again, because that means there's something with the gameplay that doesn't need you to be in it to be interesting, even if it is just that plus I almost made it, let's see who does make it, because there are games where they end up being a little more disposable, and you're like, cool, bye. Or they add cars.
I think it's an interesting one that it's done some really insane numbers on Twitch. So there's a lot of people not playing it, they're just watching people playing it, because it does have that game show element to it. It does have that idea that you want to see the carnage, you want to see kind of who is going to come out on top. And these games are super short. They each round is maybe 2 or 3 minutes long, so actually a whole run is probably about 15 minutes, which means that you can.
Okay. The opportunity cost of watching the whole round, even if you're like quite early on dead.
Yeah.
Really low. Okay.
Absolutely.
I, for some reason, thought it was longer.
No, it's really short. In comparison to other, say, elimination battle royale style games, which lots of people still want to spectate and just watch, in the background whilst they're doing other things, or they want to watch their favorite sort of streamer apply their trade and stuff. But
yeah, I think watching someone play like a PUBG or a Fortnite, I assume, is a little different, because you end up watching like that your friend, streamer, or whatever, and their squad, and listen to their banter.
Yes.
But I think in those instances, as soon as that team is out, it's time to leave. And
Yeah.
I think the people that run those streams wouldn't stick around, perhaps. But if it's 15 minutes all told, like, I don't know, like, I would be like, unless I was out right away in first round, I'd be like, cool, let's just watch the rest of this. Or something. Like it'd be like, okay, there's 5 minutes left in this round. Let's just see. Also, I think because it's adorable and there's all kinds of weird shenanigans, and maybe that'll get old. Because right now you're seeing all kinds of stuff you just are like, oh, you could do that in this game? Like, you shared that Twitter clip of the guy who makes it to the very end, and the guy who's going to win doesn't cross the line just so he can kick this poor bastard
Just
off
knocks
of
him
thing.
off. Yes.
It just eliminates him entirely. It's like,
Yep.
yeah, you're second place. Nope, you're not going to win.
Yeah.
Because it's clearly a one life game.
It's interesting that I have had a couple of moments where I've been like bundled off of a course by just the massive group of players all trying to get into this tiny space. I've been on the fringe and say knocked off,
Right.
and been eliminated. But luckily that doesn't feel cheap. So it's, it's not kind of me going, oh my god, I'm so annoyed at this game. Fuck, I could have, how dare this happen to me? Like, it was very much like, oh, lame. Start again. Just join another.
It's like,
just join another game.
I think the start again is really important, and it'll be interesting. Because this is very a zeitgeistic game right now, so there's probably just you're never going to wait that long for a new round. It might be different in a few months.
Yeah. I think, again, from another news article I read, they had estimated something like 300,000 concurrent users, so had server space for that. But this exploded and did something like 2 million concurrent, or 2 million purchases on Steam, and was then the top for concurrent users for a couple of days over on Steam, and massively exceeded the amount of people they thought they would have at any one time. So
yeah, and the search went real bad.
Yeah, there have been technical issues with it, but I think they've got on top of those. I've not experienced any, but I have been dipping in. It's not been right. This evening, I'm just going to play Fall Guys all night. That's what I'm going to do. It's like, I'll play for a couple of rounds, and then a couple of days later, I thought, well, I'll play another couple of rounds. It's been more on the sort of flyer thing. I don't want to play Ghost of Tsushima or Other Side. I just want some dumb fun that I can do for like 20 minutes whilst Kim is off doing something else for an evening. I'll just do a round or do 2 rounds if I go out early enough.
Yeah, I mean, I think you hit the nail on the head there with the fact that it can be really short bursts. While, like, I mean, I haven't played Ghost of Tsushima, but obviously I played like similar games, and there it's almost always very much a like, okay, to really enjoy this, I want to spend at least 2 hours in front of the thing, like, because I need to have some time to re-immerse myself into what has happened, and that is just being in the world and reminding myself, and then I want to progress, and I want to feel like I got accomplished something, and then I'll have to find the right time to leave, and that often isn't like a cool, I hit a new milestone, done, 45 minutes. It's like, I think it takes, in a good immersed world, I think it usually takes at least 30 minutes to just really get back into it, and then you're like, now I'm back into it, now I want to do a thing in this world. Now I need to get to a point where I can stop doing a thing in this world. While with something like that, it's very much, it's because it's like a Twitch platformer with cutesy aesthetic. Re-immersion's not a big deal, and it probably doesn't take as long anyway.
Absolutely. As I said, it kind of, it's got a little bit of depth to it as well.
I mean, that's I guess my one worry. Yeah.
Well, you can kind of, as I say, I definitely haven't seen all of the game modes yet. There's a couple I know that exist. I think I saw an article saying we rank all X number of stages based on what we enjoy, and there was over 20, and there were a couple sort of towards the bottom of that list of the worst ones, or at least that this I can't remember who it was from, whoever made the video, that they didn't enjoy. And there was a couple that I haven't done yet. So there's one where you grab a tail off of another character, and you have to be the one with the tail. But there's a team version of that, and I haven't seen that game mode yet.
Oh, that must be completely different, though.
Yeah, you would imagine. Yeah, absolutely. There was one I experienced today, actually, when I played, that I hadn't done yet, where I can't remember if it's called Phased or Dazed or something like that, where basically it's another team game, and if at the end of the time, or you get down to only one person who hasn't been grabbed and hasn't got this big purpley pinky cloud floating around them,
right,
they haven't been kind of tagged ultimately. So it plays on those similar kind of ideas and just changes them up a little bit to get a much broader sort of set of play spaces and kind of game modes in there. And so far it's changed them up enough through the different runs that I have played that I do know the ones that I like, the ones that I don't enjoy as much, but I've never had
like a string of fuck off, this sucks. Exactly.
I've never had any of them really hammered at me, and I've never encountered it yet where I've gone, there's these 3 that I don't like. Brilliant. I've just done that one. I've now got to do this one. I've now got to do this one. That hasn't happened. There are some which are more difficult, which I think are great actually. I get to try this again. I get to improve myself upon this course. It's the only way I'm going to get better at it is by running it again and again and again and trying it out. So we'll see.
The other advantage I was going to say is because these are short stages. I don't want to trivialize design, but like they can just add more into the queue as the game ages, right?
Yes.
Because I'm gonna guess in 2 months' time, the one that's shitty, the crappiest map or mini game, gonna have dropouts.
Yeah.
Not a lot, maybe, but you statistically, they're gathering these metrics, right? They're just gonna be like, oh yeah, 10% of our population just drops when this game spawns. Cool. Keep it in there because we don't want to because some people might like it, maybe, but if we look at the top 3 maps that people have the lowest drop percentage, all have this thing in common: team, platform, whatever. I'm sure they can curate the queue in a way that I doubt they cut things, because cutting content is just bad news.
Yep.
Even if everyone hates this map, saying we're taking a map away is just a thing that gamers don't like.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, a thing.
They just change the percentage in which it might appear.
Right?
Yeah, absolutely. And if there's, I suppose at the moment, if there are 25 different runs to do, they take all of those down. The 3 or 4 that aren't as good, they take those down from the 4% chance that it might come up to a exactly. And then as they add more in, they might actually go, well, this is a new game mode, so we'll make this one 6% that it might come up, or how that actually works stacked against when you take one out for the next set of rounds. Yeah, but yes,
we know that the technology to do this is really simple, and the data is now there. And one of the things when Team Fortress 2 came out years and years ago, or Quake 3 Arena, or Quake 2 even, there just wasn't the technology, but also the idea of tracking these stats. So you just had, hey, your pool of maps is these 18. You won't see this one until you've seen the other 17, and technology has gone past that. So any game that and I'm saying this fully acknowledging that you might like the one map that no one likes. or the one game mode that no one else likes, and so you will see it less often in this world I'm describing. But overall, I think it's probably better that like they pay attention to these numbers, because that's how you get the game to continue, right? Like if it's, because then you can take a game that's like everyone fucking loves half of the modes. Like almost no one doesn't like a single one of these top half ones, but a lot of people kind of don't like, and it's disparate around these bottom half ones, and you're like, cool, well, I'll just make sure that like 75% of the time that the ones that everyone universally likes show up, and then in that 25% of the time I'll split the legitimate, like the actual other 50% of the modes, and everyone will be happier than one for oneing or trying to do it. Like we have the technology, and this is the type of thing that like this type of dev should be trying to do, right? Is like you've got the data, and again, I think don't trust the data 100%, right? Because sometimes it's like you have these slow burns where like people realize, oh, actually this game mode is way cooler than we thought when we first played it, and I'm not going to drop it anymore, right? You want to make sure you don't like cold cut something.
Absolutely.
But
yeah,
you can shape around that, and that's like giving a better experience, and it's a multiplayer service mode, whatever you want to call it, game, and like that's what you should be doing.
Yeah, and it's interesting to see how they will move forward with any kind of new modes, because there's already tons that I have thought of in my head which would be cool. Whether you're running down a slope and things are following you and you kind of have to navigate yourself through an obstacle course. As I say, I haven't seen all of the game modes yet. That might exist in there.
I mean, but that's also like, sorry, like two things. One, the fact that you haven't seen them all is great, and like means there's enough. And two, the fact that the game has gripped you enough, even though you haven't played that much, that you're like, oh, it'd be really cool knowing what this, like the parts of the game that exist. This is a way it could be.
Yes.
And like that means they've got you in their clutches, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
You're enjoying this game
very much. And if they were to turn around and say, hey, here's 5 new maps, it's £5, I'd probably buy that.
Yeah, because you got the thing for free.
Exactly. But I don't want them to do that, because I don't want them to then, well, not from me spending any money, but more that I don't want them to then cut the kind of player base in half.
You don't want a Battlefield 1 it. Right?
Exactly. Don't want a Battlefield, don't want a Call of Duty it. You don't want to split your player base where some people are playing classic mode on those maps, some people are playing with these maps included, some people are then playing with, month 4's maps included. You kind of just want it to be open to everybody. So I don't know how they're going to do it. I know they monetize in terms of things like cosmetics. You can dress your little jelly bean up. They have a store to do that. You use in-game currency, which you can obviously purchase with real money, X number of gems or something like that. So they do have some monetization in there, but at least currently it is only cosmetic, and and I've not felt any need to change my little jelly bean past the free stuff I have.
And I think that's fine. I go back and forth on things like loot boxes, just because I know the psychology and the fact that like younger people don't have the mental fortitude to like deal with that. And Lewis is not around, but we go back and forth every time this comes up on this. But like, I think loot boxes, etc., being game impacting is universally bad, because it makes it, even if it's like low percentages, it makes it pay to win. And so like, yes, some cosmetics some people can avoid and some people can't, and there's this weird line of how much do we ensure, we give the social safety net, if you will, to the make sure we protect people from being exploited if they are, predilected to that. That's a different thing, but like, at the very least, I think, yes, it's great to hear that this game has come out. It has cosmetics and stuff, and they're non-impactful, and if they, so long as they, even if they realize, even this is their primary like funding model, at least it won't mean that like you can't just pick it up in 2 months and be like, I'm good at platforming, I'm gonna win.
Yep. Absolutely, I think they need to keep that. They absolutely need to keep the openness and the accessibility that they have for it currently. It's a great game, and I think it's something that even Kim or Evelyn, when she's a little bit older as well, would very easily be able to play. And hopefully it's still around, in a year, in 2 years kind of time, for to bring more people in until Fall Guys 2 or however they then expand upon that.
I think you're right happens, though. It can't be. It'll be a shame if it ends up being a season-y thing versus we have the coffers and we have enough of a business plan with things like cosmetics that we can run this for 2-3 years and then maybe come out with a new thing. Like
it's interesting as well because it's from a studio who do a lot of kind of for hire work as well.
I didn't know that.
They made I think the most recent thing they made was the Gears Pop game, like the Funko Pop style Gears of War game. Yes, yeah.
I am apparently not connected to the pulse of whatever part of gaming that is. Could you?
Let's find out who they were. I can't remember who they are.
For my edification, I got from you Gears World Funko Pop-ish aesthetic. So I get but I don't know what kind of game that is, how big it is.
I can't remember. I've never played it. I remember it was.
Are you sure not thinking of Halo Reach?
No. There's a Gears of War Funko Pop style game. Here you go, Gears Pop. It's called. Oh, wow. Explosive PvP and co-op battles. Assemble a team of cute Funko Gears of War characters and fight in fast-paced explosive battles. Collect and compete on iOS and Android. They made that. They made Murder by Numbers. Lucy really liked Murder by Numbers.
So it's a mobile only.
Yes.
So they're like the anti-Fortnite. They're like, you want to play this game on mobile? We'll have a blobby Funko Man because Gears is for PC and Xbox only.
Wait, this says they didn't make Hatful Boyfriend, surely? Maybe they ported it.
Yeah, are you sure? Is it the publisher or the dev?
No, this is the dev, Mediatonic. Maybe they ported Hatful Boyfriend.
Yeah, because Mediatonic doesn't sound like the Hatful dev to me.
Who knows? But yeah, the amount of games they've got is ridiculous. So hopefully, as we say, hopefully they do have the coffers to suddenly go, we have hit with this game that we have brought out. We can support this. We can still put out, game Y, game Z, game A, game B, game C over the next 3-4 years, whilst supporting Fall Guys and being able to cover the cost of that, to keep people in the ecosystem, to then say, well, Fall Guys 2 isn't going to be a free PlayStation Plus game, and they've had like 2 million purchases on Steam, where it is a full price game, which is absolutely insane. So hopefully that kind of pulls them along as well. But we'll see, I guess.
I didn't think this type of move was possible, but you have to give them credit to the fact that normally you see these PS Plus games as just like generic freebie. When it's like not an old game but a new game, you're like, yeah, they must they've made this. Sony's paid them a bucket of cash and they'll continue on things like cosmetics. But this is a shrewd thing. They managed to make enough of a splash in the gaming zeitgeist by being free on PlayStation that they're minting, I can only assume, minting money on Steam, right? It's not Epic Game Store cut, but it's still a lot when it's 2 million downloads.
Absolutely, and I closed Steam to allow all the other programs that we're using to record this to breathe a little bit.
I'm just looking.
I'm wondering, trying to wonder how much it is. How much is it? on Steam. I'd imagine it's maybe 15 quid, around that.
Oh, I see. So Hatful Boyfriend had 3 different developers.
Oh.
Wait, no, I clicked developer and it took me to Devolver Digital Super Fun Club. No.
Yeah, so Devolver's the publisher, right?
Yeah, I think.
Of which it is for Fall Guys as well.
Yeah. I'm just, for some reason, when I click on Mediatonic, not Devolver Digital, it just takes me to Mediatonic. So I thought I could just look both up, like one, and then link through the other. But Fall Guys, it's $15.99.
Yeah. I'd say that's about right. Absolutely, yeah.
Or the collector's edition.
Oh. Is that with a soundtrack, maybe?
No. Bundle of both. The collector's edition is $23.99, so like 8 quid more.
Oh.
And it comes with the collector's pack, which is DLC, which looks like costumes.
Okay. Yeah, fair enough. Makes sense.
Okay, yeah, so discounted 10,000 kudos in-game currency. Yeah, it is literally just the fast... Oh, and there's also the fast food DLC for 4 quid. So it looks like it's... Yeah, it's exactly what we were thinking. It's like, want to be a unicorn ballerina, an astronaut, a pirate, spend an extra 8 quid, get the Founders Collector's Edition.
Want to be dressed as a burger, spend 4 quid.
Yeah, but like, it's $15.99, and it's already got 41,000 reviews, which is a lot of reviews.
Yeah.
Because obviously Steam doesn't tell us how many were bought, but you were saying that some press release said
something said 2 million. Yeah, definitely.
Was that total, or
I don't know if there's a press release or it was a media site's like news article, I think. I'd have to dig it out to let listeners find out and share it on the Out of Lives feeds.
Oh, so I've got VentureBeat published that said that publisher Devolver Digital revealed on Twitter that Ultimate Knockout already sold 2 million copies just on Steam.
Insane.
And it came out on the 4th of August.
Yeah, a week.
Yeah. 2 million in a week, $15.99, medium small publisher.
When you've got games that celebrate 1 million in 6 months or a year, and that is good numbers for them. I mean, this is just gangbusters. Like, it'd be interesting to see.
It's a different game.
Yeah, be interesting to see what the numbers on PS Plus are, considering they have about 40 million subscribers.
I'm assuming it's a lot more.
Well, you'd think so.
But I actually want to know is what we're curious is what the conversion is.
Yes. Yeah.
Sorry, my housemates have just texted me saying that they're at the pub down the road, and I'm...
Hey. Well, we'll finish there for this evening then, shall we? Aadil, you had 2 beers. I'm pretty sure I know which one you preferred, but did the other grow on you at all? Did anything else come from it?
I wanted to say, like a porter shouldn't be as cold, but let's be honest, like, it's this 30-degree room. Second beer, it was the right temperature when I cracked it, I think, because it was too cold when I started. It did nothing different throughout the drink. So yeah, I was quite let down by the Daybreak coffee porter. Not just because of the lack of coffee, it just kind of was a one-note porter as well. So like, yeah, why I wanted to like comment on it again was like, how much am I just wishing the 2 words were more than I thought they were? But actually, even if I just look at porter, I'm still not that impressed. Like, it just wasn't a great porter, and it definitely didn't taste like a coffee porter at all. The Panty, the Oedipus Panty.
Panty.
Yeah, it was a solid stout. It had some depth to it. I would have this again.
Nice.
I don't think either of these are the best from those sort of Dutch Beer 52 box, or especially of the stouts and porters. I think that what we have learned from at least Beer 52 selection is that while when I lived in the Netherlands, you couldn't really get a craft beer that was a stout or a porter. Now you can. They're still processing how to like make these particular varieties of beer really well, because I've had things from Oedipus that I've really liked.
Yeah.
There are some excellent breweries in the Netherlands, like Brouwerij Ipa, that I have the shirt of that I'm not wearing today. Is great. I love their IPA. I love their double IPA. I love almost everything they do. They're the one that I affectionately call the Windmill Brewery. And they've been doing craft style beers for the last 10 years to the quality that like we're used to. So it's not like it's just a craft is smaller in the Netherlands. It's like, no, actually, I think it's legitimately. I never saw a stout or a porter except for like really cold Guinness on tap, because that's a thing that like tourists might want. You know what I mean? Like I've never saw that in the pubs, so I think it's just a matter of like it's a bit of catch up, because it's like just coming to grips with this type of beer. It's not normal. Yeah. So yeah, it's the Oedipus Panty, which is panty for pantyhose.
Good. I'm gonna crack another Gipper, but I'm gonna make sure that it will have been in the fridge. I'm gonna drink it quickly after I've taken it out, so it doesn't warm to the extent that this one had, because it's definitely a inferior flavour after it's been sat getting warm for 40-50 minutes. This wants to be kind of fresh from the fridge, really.
I mean, what today's experiment has proven to me is that I shouldn't switch to the Goose IPA for these, like, have a few beers in the park with friends, because, like, the fourth one and the third one probably will all not be great.
Yep.
And that's, again, not to say it isn't a good beer. It's just, it's temperamental?
Definitely, yeah.
Temperamental. No, not temperature temperamental.
No. I
think temperature temperamental is better. It's got a alliterative move versus
somewhere.
At this point, alliteration versus portmanteau.
That's another conversation for another day.
Or never.
Well, yeah, probably. If you want to play Fall Guys alongside me, I've got no idea whether you can. Can you form parties? Can you go into the same games? I've got no idea. Let's explore that together. I'm at Nova_47 on PlayStation, on Twitter as well. I haven't been sharing anywhere near as many screenshots or photo mode shots of Ghost of Tsushima and The Last of Us than actually exist on my hard drive, because I've just been lazy and haven't edited or done anything with them. But they might start appearing.
Busy does not equal lazy.
That's very true. Yes. Okay. Yes. I've been very busy, and I have put that right down the bottom of the list of things that need to be done.
Fair.
But you can shout at me on Twitter at Nova_47. Nova Scotia.
Like
Talking of Nova Scotia, Aadil,
I used to live in Nova Scotia.
how do people talk to you about what you're missing over there?
You can reach me at the Omniarch, TheOmniarch, or on Twitch, THE_OMNIARCH, on all the things. But you can also check out our previous streams if you didn't catch them on VOD on twitch.tv/OutOfLives Network, or you can go to outoflives.net for all kinds of interesting content on TV, news, anime, video games, etc. And if you are interested in chatting or in interacting with us more, you should follow the link on the website that takes us to the Discord.
Yeah.
Join our Discord. We are reasonably active. We've got stuff going on, and we've got some new streamers joining the team who you won't really see a web presence on the website necessarily, but that allows we're doing more streaming. Is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
But also, so hit us up, and also Facebook.
Yes, the
We have a
Advice
Facebook
Facebook
page.
as well. Yeah,
Yeah.
everything that is posted on the site is posted over there. It's one of the easiest ways to see any new content that goes up. You can also get Aadil, Lucy, and myself at TankTupCast on Instagram or on Twitter as well. We're changing up a little bit the way we use these socials, maybe just doing a little bit more individually on our own social accounts, like beer posts and things like that, and then maybe sharing them with the podcast feed. Unless they are podcast beers or podcast games that we have talked about, then they will be featured on our podcast
Main
Tanked Upcast social feed. So yeah, follow all of us. Lucy is Juicy Lucy 9 as well, if you want to shout at her for not being on this week. And next week, oh yes.
Oh, I was gonna say, but yeah, and also get in touch. We love hearing from you on whatever platform you want to chat with us, and let us know what we should be playing or what we should be drinking.
Absolutely. Next week, guests, because a game that they made has released. So I believe we have Dave and Sean from Pillbug on again next week.
Nice.
You may have caught our episode with them about a month or so ago now.
2?
Yeah, roughly, where they were just about to release the game. It's out now. Making It Home is out. They're going to be on with us next week. So stick around on Twitch or in your podcast feed, on your podcast service of choice, where you should have rated us as highly as possible to hear them next week.
Yeah, and either next Monday or next Tuesday at noon, I haven't figured out, there'll be a Making It Home stream.
Nice.
Where I'll be piloting probably, and it'll be someone else from Out of Lives, and we'll talk through to just go through the thing, because, well, one, I need to play it, and two, it'd be fun to stream and make that accessible to you guys before the actual interview episode happens.
Yeah, absolutely. Good stuff. So, this week, we've been tanked up. Bye-bye.
Like and subscribe, YouTube friend. Bye.
www.outoflives.net